Social workers operating in vulnerable communities in Cape Town have become the latest targets for extortionists. The Western Cape Social Development Department has spent more than 20 million on overtime. This is to double up social workers operating in high-risk areas. This was revealed by the management and coordination in the department during a sitting of the Standing Committee on Social Development in the provincial legislature on Friday. Joining us to discuss this further is Wendy Kaizer-Philander. She's chairperson for the Standing Committee on Social Development in the Western Cape Provincial legislature. She's also DA spokesperson for social development in the Western Cape. Good afternoon, Wendy. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. So on Friday, we heard, or rather it was reported that senior management revealed that social workers are now also being targeted by extortion rackets. What is the modus operandi when they approach some of these social workers?
Good afternoon, Mfundo, and thank you for having me this afternoon and obviously shedding light and awareness on the matter of the safety of social workers. Indeed so, we had a committee meeting this past Friday and we have seen alarming rise in hijackings and physical attacks on social workers, unfortunately, in the Western Cape, especially those that do drive government vehicles. And what emanated from Friday's meeting also is that they are now also confronted by extortionists. These individuals, these criminal activities then approach the social workers that does a very crucial and critical job within our vulnerable communities, either for their vehicles, for their devices, or asking for money.
So with these extortionists, would they just tell them that if you want to be protected when you work in this community, you've got to pay a specific fee? What would that fee be? How much would it be?
Unfortunately, we did not receive the specifics in terms of the fees, but what we do know at this point in time, social workers does get assaulted, and what is most evident at this point in time is the threat to their vehicles, which of course is a very important resource for them to be able to effectively and efficiently conduct their business.
So which communities are most affected when we're talking about these so-called vulnerable communities?
We were informed as the Standing Committee, the communities of Khayelitsha, East River, Wynberg, Elsie's River, Crossroads, Philippi, Gugulethu, Delft, Mfuleni, Mitchell's Plain, also now Paarl East, as well as Langa areas are targeted, where those social workers are targeted at this point in time.
Wendy, that's honestly very worrying, because the sad reality is that social workers are probably most needed in those so-called vulnerable communities. But now, what happens in this instance? What is a lasting solution that perhaps has been put on the table or is being discussed right now? Because to spend 20 million or in excess thereof is something that isn't sustainable.
Exactly so. We all are aware of the finances, the critical commodity thereof, and how scarce these finances are. And Mfundo, I must say, I was glad to hear that the various interventions by the government departments at this point in time, social workers, they are absolutely so. They are the front line, and our communities depend on them. So within the department itself, as you've mentioned, the 20 million rand for overtime, and that obviously is a result of the Western Cape Department of Social Development now as an intervention. Instituting the buddy system. So where a social worker would go out to a certain area, a colleague is now joining that social worker. But now also the downside of that is, whilst that extra social worker in that vehicle could have attended to other cases, they must now buddy up. We also see
but it's also, pardon me for interjecting, but it's also probably not that effective. Because if somebody has a gun and there's two of you, it doesn't matter the number of officials that are there in that car at that moment.
Exactly so. But obviously that makes the officials feel a bit safer, but that does not deter the criminals from conducting their acts. We have also heard that these social workers unfortunately cannot enter some of these areas without police escorts. And many a time our communities ask, where are the police? Where are the city law enforcement officers? Well, at this point in time, they are unfortunately busy with escorting and assisting these social workers to conduct the very, very crucial job that they are doing.
But again, I ask, because I believe that at that specific sitting, you did have members of the police that were part of that session. What is a lasting solution?
Well, I'm very pleased to have had the Provincial Commissioner himself attending to the meeting, which tells us that he regards this as a very important matter as well. And we've got the commitment on Friday that this matter will be taken up at the Provincial Priority Committee, which we welcome that. And then, Fundo, I can perhaps just also mention to you that we've written 3 letters to the National Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. Yes. And why we've communicated to the Minister is that we need these crimes to be classified as crimes against the state. And what will that mean? That will mean that there's harsher punishment for those criminals that engage in these activities.
And I suppose the hope is that this would serve as a deterrent for would-be offenders. Wendy, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That's Wendy Kaizer-Philander. She's Chairperson for the Standing Committee on Social Development in the Western Cape.